It's a great day. My name is Shay Brown, the Happy Entrepreneur, and welcome to the Happy Entrepreneur Show, the number one business development and revenue focused late night show in the country where we're on a mission. And our mission is to empower, our mission is to inspire, and our mission is to provide you, the entrepreneur, to get up every single day to make a difference in this world with all of the resources that are necessary to execute that big vision you have for the people you were called to serve. And on this episode, we have the one and only Coach Steve Bacon in the building. What's up, Coach Steve? How are you, my friend?
I am doing incredible, brother. If I was doing any better, I'd be jealous of myself.
Well, I just want to acknowledge you, man. I've been following you on social media. I've been one of your stalkers for a number of years since we've been connected together. And I know over the last month, you've been on many different continents, traveling across different countries. Take a moment. I'm just curious, what has that been like for you?
It has been a dream come true. I remember being a kid and sitting outside the airport and watching planes take off and land and saying, one day I'm going to be on those planes and I'm going to go visit every corner of this planet. And so to be able to keep that promise to myself and actually do that, my soul and heart is just so happy, man. It's just so happy. It's hard on the body, but being in all these different time zones and, weather systems, but it's so much fun.
Well, I guess I should start crying for you, backpacking through Europe. You said you was over in Italy, and you going to Olive Garden is just not the same for you no more, is it?
Yeah, no, yeah, because I was saying that, I got a chance to taste real Italian lasagna, and it is nothing like here in the States. And so now I feel like I'm a snob. Like, no more Olive Garden for me. Like, don't even invite me to go to Olive Garden because I'm just going to be mad. Like, this ain't real Italian food. This is McDonald's.
We're not sponsored by Olive Garden, so please don't give us a call. By the way, these are the opinions of Coach Steve Bacon. I'm joking. Take a moment if you would. I know we were talking about going from great to legendary, but I want you to be as real as you can on here and kind of frame the conversation. Why, in a time where folks have access to more training than ever before, there's now Threads, there's Instagram, there's Facebook, there's TikTok, and they've got all these messages, yet to go from that great to legendary just seems to be a big gap. Here's the question. What are challenges people have? Why are they stuck where they are, man?
Okay. So I know, okay, so let me break down stuck for a second. Because when someone says stuck, what they're saying is, I'm unhappy with where I am, but I'm unwilling to do what's necessary to get to where I want to go. And instead of telling myself that I'm unwilling to do it, I lie to myself and say I'm doing everything I can so I can sleep at night. That's what causes the stuck. People just really not being honest about where they are. That's number one. Number two, we cannot and will not outperform our self-image. Now, we can have all the training necessary. And I work with, right now, I have a client whose business is stuck at $10 million a year. Okay. And he's like, I just can't seem to go past 10 million. And what I helped him realize was he's reached the ceiling of how far his self-image can take him. There's a certain degree of success that each one of us have inside of us that our self-image cannot go past. And so I had a chance to work with Bob Proctor, and he made that very clear that we cannot and will not outperform our self-perception. I'm going to break that down in a minute. But I want everyone to understand that doubt, like especially for entrepreneurs, that doubt that we experience, it's actually unnatural. And I'm going to share why. When you look at a small infant child, they don't have doubt. They go from instant or inspired thought to immediate action. And then at some point, in order for us to fit into society, that child's huge imagination starts to get put inside of a box so they can be trained on how to fit into society. So when you start to experience doubt, what's happening is that what you desire to create is now bumping up against how you've been trained to behave and what you've been conditioned to believe is possible or not possible. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. And as you were saying that, one of the things that came to mind is for the person that's listening right now that says, "Listen, Coach Steve, I got a lot going on. I believe I'm the
Yeah.
greatest in the world. I read all the books. And I want you to talk to that individual right now." And they're like, "But here's my challenge. I've got so much going on, man. You don't understand." Because on this show, and I want to frame it for the audience, we have dualpreneurs, Steve. They work a full-time
Mm-hmm.
job, many of them, and they're a full-time entrepreneur. And they take care of their family, and they take care of the kids, and they're involved in their community, and they're in other organizations. So they're like, "I just got a lot of priorities, man. So I'm doing great right now." Steve, you can't be talking to me. What would you say to that individual?
Couple things. One, okay, even though you have a lot going on, you have to be honest with yourself about where you are and where you want to go and what you're actually willing to do to get there, right? Because it's exactly what I just said. Being stuck just means that I know what it is that I want to do. I know what it's going to take to get there, but am I really willing to do what it takes to get there? So I deal with entrepreneurs all the time who have these situations, but the first thing I ask them to do is get completely honest with themselves. Is what you want, are you really willing to do everything necessary to get it? That's it's just honesty. That's the that I get the motivation. I get it. But we have to start where we are, not where we think we should be. And that's where I deal with entrepreneurs who are in that space. I'm not going to give you just more motivation because the truth is the likelihood that you'll actually go out there and do it is slim to none. You may even get started, but the likelihood that you'll backtrack and talk yourself out of it is also very high, which is the reason why they keep bumping up in the ceiling. So I have to be honest, Shay, and I work with people on radical honesty. Let's start with where you are, not where you think you should be. Because then we can build a plan to go from there.
And you talk about building a plan to grow from where they are, folks are reading your bio. There's some folks already Googling you. There's other folks that are listening right now. You're currently in their ears, like you have your stuff in your ears right now. They might be
Yeah.
cooking, and they're wondering, "Shay, who is this guy? Can he
Yeah.
take a moment because he's saying we should do all this stuff?" Do you mind being transparent and sharing a little bit of your backstory, your background that led you to where you are right now, so they can kind of understand who Coach Steve Bacon is?
Sure. So I was born in '84 in the Bay Area, um, right at the heart of the crack epidemic. My mom got addicted to crack about 6 months after I was born. I went to 14 different schools growing up. I was molested as a kid, held for ransom once by a drug dealer who my mom owed money to. At 8 years old, I met my father for the first time and didn't know who this man was because my mom just dropped me off, said she was coming to pick me up or coming back to pick me up. But then this guy shows up the next day and says, "You're coming to live with me." And that sparked a 20-year hatred for my mother that led to all type of relationship issues. My dad and I had a very contentious and abusive relationship until I threatened to kill him when I was 14. And then went back to live with my grandmother at 17 years old. I took off to the military, uh, trying to get away from everything and everybody. And unfortunately, wherever I went, there I was. I married the first girl who said she loved me, physically, mentally, and emotionally abused her until she got the courage to leave, and then played victim and put a loaded gun in my mouth and pulled the trigger. And that failed attempt led to a huge awakening that I didn't want to die, but I just didn't know how to live, but I still didn't know what to do with all the trauma that I was facing. So I started drinking to get drunk, then ended up on the wrong end of the law, became a felon, married the second girl who said she loved me because I was homeless and needed a place to live, all before the age 20. So statistically, this is the reason why I coach the way I coach now. Statistically, I should be dead, in jail, or strung out on something. But what saved and changed my life was a gentleman named Hank who entered my life. at a very pivotal time, right when I was 20, and he introduced me to personal development, and that sparked an 18-year, obsession with human behavior and why it is that we do what we do. Today, I run a $500,000 a year coaching business, author of 2 books, international speaker and trainer, married to my best friend who I've never laid a hand on. I'm a father who rebuilt the relationship with my father. We have an amazing relationship today. Helped my mother get off drugs, back in school, and rebuilt the relationship with her before she passed away a couple of years ago. And so I'm not sharing everything I'm sharing just because I read it in some book. When I say you have to get honest with yourself if you want change, it is radical honesty that is necessary. Now I understand that there's all these other different ways of changing, but there's 4 ways of changing that's temporary, and there's 4 ways of changing that are, or 2 ways of changing that are permanent. You could change your environment, but if you have the same belief system and the same self-image going into that environment, you're going to do the same thing. You can change your emotions. You can or focus on changing your emotions, but it is thought that causes the emotion and belief that produces the thought. You can focus on changing physically, just dressing better and all this stuff. But if you put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. You can just focus on changing your behavior. But understand you can change whatever you want and force it to change only for as long as you can concentrate on that thing. But the minute you take your focus off of it, you're going to go back to doing what you were doing. The only way to permanently change and start to elevate and really experience what I call effortless success is to change your belief system and self-image. And that takes way more work and courage, but it also takes radical honesty.
I love it, man. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for being so transparent. And as you were saying that, on your website, you have become the legendary version of you. I mean, when I first went to the homepage, and I'm curious about the backstory and being legendary, by the way. But when I saw it, I was like, man, become the legendary version of me. And I didn't know what that looked like. I was stuck. I was like, whoa, I've seen a lot of stuff, but what is the legendary version? It didn't say be legendary. It said become the legendary version of yourself. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, as you're out there listening right now, I'm going to ask, Coach Steve the question. What's the backstory, obviously, but what's the concept behind be the legendary version of yourself, and what does that even look like for folks?
So you ever took one of those tests where they say to rate each area of your life on a scale of 1 to 10? And you ever see how people have their wheel all lopsided and right? Like that one area is doing really well, right? And then this area is suffering, right? What I consider a legendary life is when you have a 10 in all areas of life. That's legendary life. When every single area of your life, your finances, your spiritual, your relationships, your marriage, or your relationship with your spouse, your family, your personal growth, your health, every last one of those areas can be at a 10 if that is your intention. And that's what I call a legendary life. And every single person has the ability to build that in their life. It just takes intention.
It all comes down to intention, intention, intention. So for the person who's listening now, thanks, man. And the reason I want you all to pay very close attention is that this one conversation, I believe, and we have an opportunity to talk to a lot of different entrepreneurs, but I believe that Coach Steve Bacon is the one person at the right time that can really change not only your life, but change your entire family. And that's one of the things he talked about. I didn't talk about just what he's doing, talk about how he was able to change the trajectory in the life of other folks. My question to you, Steve, over there is, can you share maybe 1, 2, or 3 ideas that someone could grab onto now that can help them go from great to legendary? That's question 1. And before you do that, I want you to talk to the person that's struggling first with mental health. Mental health is very, very important right now. It's rocking, I think, our society, and I think it's always been there. It's just more prevalent. And you talk about some things you did yourself. So if someone's on the other side right now and they're watching, they're like, I'm on what's end, Jay. I hear them, but I just wonder what he would say to me before he talks about to the other folks that can get better. I need to get going. Yeah. What would you say to that mom or that dad or that individual that just got to get up right now?
The first thing I'm going to say is there's nothing wrong with you other than the idea that you think something is wrong with you. You are actually absolutely perfect, whole, and complete, other than the idea that you're not. 85% of what you believe about you, you decided by the time you were 14 years old. When I work with clients, we deal with that first 14 years of life because that's when your self-image is formed. Now, let me explain what that is. Identity is who you are. Self-esteem is how you feel about who you are. But self-image is what I think you think I am. Self-image is how we see ourselves through other people's eyes. So for those of you that are out there struggling right now, I want you to understand that the only thing that's keeping you in the space that you are right now is this idea that you're supposed to be where you're at because of the past that you experienced. But I want you to just grasp this for a second. The only place the past exists is in your mind. You honestly can't physically get in a car or get in a machine and go back to the past. You even can't go to the future. The only place that's real right now is the present. Right now. In order to heal from the past, you have to face it directly and understand that the reason why you still have all the emotion and stuff that comes from the past is simply because you're still viewing it from the eyes of a child. Pay attention to this for a second. Imagine you walk into a courtroom and the judge is 8 years old, the jury is 8 years old, the prosecutor is 8 years old, the eyewitness is 8 years old, and there's no defense attorney and no cross-examination. Now, how fair of a trial would that be? Wouldn't be much of a fair trial at all, would it? Because it would pretty much be a railroad trial. So understand that when you're viewing the past, you're viewing it through the eyes and the judgment and the decisions of a child. Now, I also want you to imagine that your child experienced some of the same things that you experienced. And I want you to imagine them coming up to you and saying, Mom or Dad, I'll give an example, Dad didn't come to my game. That means he doesn't want to, deal with me. Because that's the way a child processes. Now I want you to imagine, as a grown person, you looking your little child in the eye and saying, yeah, baby, you're right. Your daddy don't want nothing to do with you. You wouldn't say that because your adult mind knows better. But understand that as human beings, we are meaning-making machines, and that child is judging every single situation that's happening, not based on the intention, but purely based on the action. And you wouldn't let your child walk away with a horrible meaning about themselves, especially for something that had nothing to do with them. But what you would do for your child, nobody did for you. So you're still holding on to a child's point of view of your past, which is why you're still feeling the same emotions that you felt back then. It is important to put that little version of you back on the witness stand and cross-examine not what happened, but the stories and the meanings they created based on what happened that's causing your quality of life today.
I love it, man. I love the transparency. That was spot on. Now, do what you do as well when you're talking to folks who are already in the fast lane. They got the pedal to the metal, and they're like, Steve, I'm the guy. As a matter of fact, I want to know, Steve, how can I work with you? Because I'm ready to go be the legendary version of myself. Mm-hmm. I'm making some things happen. Just like you had the other client that's doing $10 million. There's some folks that are doing really, really well. but they know they have the potential inside of them to perform at a higher level.
Yeah.
And they're like, Dave, just give me one or two ideas, man, and I'm all in. I'm glad I'm here. They're sitting on the front row right now.
Yeah. Most entrepreneurs, whether they want to admit it or not, right? They're driven from a place of I'm not good enough. The challenge with being driven from a place of not good enough is that you're trying to believe in your success rather than just knowing that you are. There's two different levels of performance that happens, believing versus knowing. Because you can only believe something you actually don't know. And when you know, you respond differently. So when you're creating from this space of I'm not good enough, and that's what's driving you, you want to prove them wrong. You want to show them what you can do, right? You have this attitude of, well, they said I couldn't do it. Let me show them what I can do. When you drive from that space, you become so invested in the result that the minute things don't begin to go your way, you start getting all heady and getting in your head, and then you start to self-sabotage. When you come from a place of knowing who I am, knowing that I'm the greatest, knowing that what's meant for me can't be missed, you're able to stay calm and you're able to think from a clear space. You're able to take more, what's the word I'm looking for? Actions from a patient place rather than, I got to figure this out now. I got to do it now. It's got to happen now. And then you go screw it up. But it's also recognizing, okay, and I've learned this from some of the best creators in the world, that you have to adapt the 51-49% rule. Now, this is where most entrepreneurs get messed up, is that there's only about 51% control that you have about how something turns out. And I know for a lot of entrepreneurs that is completely contradictory to what they believe. That I'm gonna make this work. But the challenge is that you don't understand universal law. See, 51%, I heard from Michael Neal, he said 51% will give you full control over a company. 51% will get you kicked out of any casino in Las Vegas. So 51% is a lot more control than you think. But there's another 49% that's universal law, the way the universe works, that if you learn to work with it, then you will actually get to where you want a hell of a lot faster with a hell of a lot less effort. But when you try to force things to happen, especially because you're trying to prove something to yourself, you're trying to feed your ego because it's coming from this place of, like I said, not good enough and wanting to feel that good enough, right? It's that feeling where you're just like, ooh, I just did $10,000 this month. And then you have that little voice that says, yeah, but it's not 11. It's not 12,000. Look, so-and-so just did 20,000. You ain't shit because you ain't did that 20,000 yet. When you're driven by that, it will burn you out. Because it's like putting jet fuel in a car. You're going to go as fast as you can, but eventually you're going to burn out because you're being driven from a fear-driven place.
You know, we have a segment here. I love that. We have a segment here called Today is My January 1st. And for those folks that tune in every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can go ahead and say those magical words. I know you wait for it. Today is my January 1st. Happy New Year to you. I know that feels really good. And for those folks that are new to the show, welcome, 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 by the way. We want to encourage you to go over to YouTube, hit the subscribe button over at I am Che Brown, or find us on the podcast. Just type in the Happy Entrepreneur Show and download, get the early podcast early. But today is my January 1st is our personal mantra, the Happy Entrepreneur Show. It stands for a restart. It stands for a do-over. It means our past no longer equals our future. And so you don't have to wait till December 31st after couple drinks on the back of a napkin to say, today is my January 1st. It happens now. My question to Coach Steve Bacon on the other side, two things. When you hear those words, today is my January 1st, what do you hear? And number two, what was one of your January 1st moments? You've had so many, but what was one of those that comes top of mind to you?
Well, the first thing I hear is to be able to create from possibility. That's the first thing I hear. One of my January 1st moments was actually a post that I did a few weeks ago where I had just got fired from Uber. I was fresh off of homelessness. This was about 6 years ago. I was fresh off of homelessness, and uh, I was driving for Uber. And after a year, they did a background check and then told me that they had to let me go and I had to return the car that I was using for them. And I remember sitting at the kitchen table of a house that was gifted to me so I didn't be homeless anymore. I remember sitting at the kitchen table and going, you know what? No, I'm not doing this. And that's when I decided to start my coaching business from scratch. And the commitment that I made to myself at that moment was, I'm going to make this work. Because obviously this is God clearing the path for me. So I'm going to reinvent myself, and this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to make this work. And I don't care how bad it gets. I don't care, what shiny objects, what jobs are being offered. I'm going to say no. This is what I'm going to make work. And 6 years later, I kept that promise. I went from being homeless to doing $500,000 a year in coaching organically. I made I made a little bit over 400 grand off of 17 clients last year. I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that to say that when you make a committed decision, and let me explain the difference between commitments and goals, because goals, which a lot of entrepreneurs talk about, goals create disappointments. Because if you look at the word goal in the dictionary, it says aim, wish, or desire. That's about a feeling. But when you look at the word commitment, it means an obligation, something that you're so morally or legally bound to that it restricts what you do. It restricts your actions. Think about a mother's commitment to feeding her children. It doesn't matter if she has a job, doesn't have a job, in a great relationship, not in a great relationship, sick, well, it doesn't matter. She is going to make sure that them children eat regardless of the circumstances of her life. When you go after what you want with a mother's commitment that regardless of the circumstances, you are going to see this through, I guarantee you it will be done.
For folks that listen,
have a goal,
go ahead.
When you only have a goal and it's just a pure wish or desire to be in a certain place, you're going purely based on circumstance, and hopefully everything lines up just right.
What type of clients does your firm work with these days, if you're taking on any, as we come down the home stretch? And how can folks best connect with you over and beyond this conversation?
Yeah, so I look for people who are playing an infinite game. I look for people who want to live a legendary life, who want to live a 10 in all areas, not just their business, not just their money, but they want their relationships with their kids, with their spouses to be at a 10 too. They want their connection to themselves and to source to be at a 10 too. They want their health to be at a 10 too. They want to milk life for every ounce that it has. I'm looking for the people who want to live a life without borders or boundaries. People who want to be able to let go of all the rules and everything society taught them and write their own book. People who want to be able to let their imaginations run wild and free and create whatever they desire to create and shape their world in their image. I am looking for those people who want to be free. I am looking for Neos. I am Morpheus.
And how can they best connect with you? Where should they go?
CoachSteveBacon.com. You can find me there. You can also send me messages and get to all of my handles for social media.
Fantastic, man. Let me first say thanks a lot, man, for taking time. I know you can always make more money, but you can't make more time. You're giving us the most precious resource you have, which is your time. So thanks for being on the Happy Entrepreneur Show, man. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
And thank you, the viewer. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. Thank you for following us. If you haven't, go over to YouTube, type in at I am Che Brown and follow us over on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button so you can get all the goodies early, by the way. And you know, we wait every night for this one moment to say these words. I mean, it's the highlight of my night every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And here it is. You're awesome. You are truly amazing. You're incredible. You've got so much greatness inside you. And for you, today is your January 1st. And because of that reason, your best is yet to come. Your best is still yet to come. Your best is yet to come. With that being said, my name, in case you forgot, is Che Brown, the Happy Entrepreneur. Make it a great day, everyone. And I promise you from the bottom of my heart, we'll make some good things happen. We connect again next time. Remember, time is long. Life is short. You got to live in that moment. Well, and you got to make it count. God bless me. Wish you success. Thanks a lot, Coach Steve. Appreciate you, man. Peace, bro. Appreciate you.
All right, peace.